Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this morning. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And if you like the video today, please come in and share it. Today, we got a special video that we're going to shoot. Zach Wilson, quarterback of BYU, Brigham Young University. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. And helping me break down this young man. Man. He was a former NFL scout during the Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick era. He was a finalist for the GM job with the Cleveland Browns in 2017. And you know what? I'm proud to have him on today because now he's a national celebrity. Yesterday, he went on ESPN talking about a quarterback that was to go in the first round in Trevor Lawrence. But he's my man, the very talented Mr. Daniel Kelly. And one more thing I forgot. He has a great book that's on Amazon right now, Whatever It Takes. And let me tell you something. It's an outstanding story about his journey in becoming an NFL scout. So my man, the superstar, coming out of Key West, Florida this morning, Mr. Daniel Kelly. How you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing really well, Mr. Turner. Thank you so much. I appreciate the intro. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well, man. Can't complain. It's Wednesday on a midday of the week. You know what they say about Wednesdays. Wednesday's a good feeling day.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, if I'm a superstar and I'm on your platform, what does that make you?
It makes me, I tell you what it makes me.
Superstar to the second power.
It makes me a guy that's very blessed to have you on today. I cannot thank God for your talents. Just you becoming a part of 100 Yards Football platform this morning. That's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like a kid in the cookie jar, finna steal some cookies from the days of grandmother. But let's move on. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. Mr. Kelly, you've been very controversial about this young man. Tell us about Zach Wilson, quarterback of BYU, who is slated to go number 2 in this year's 2021 NFL draft.
Absolutely. I mean, I watched every single throw and run this young quarterback made in 2020. So I'm not someone that's going off half-cocked on this. And I'm just not feeling it when I watch the film. To me, he gives off a kind of a quirky vibe. And when I compare him, I mean, I have 40 years of watching NFL football. And when I run him across my encyclopedic mind of all the quarterbacks I've seen come and go, I'm just not feeling it. But first, the positives, because like with any player, there's positives and there's negatives. I'm not just saying this guy is terrible or he's not going to, this and that. There are positives. So let me start with that. First of all, he looks very polished from a technical standpoint in the pocket. He looks like he's been coached to play quarterback from the time he could walk. He's got good pocket poise and toughness, good mobility. He can either roll out to his left or to his right. He's a little bit better rolling out to his right. He makes smart and a lot of quick decisions in the pocket. He's really good inside the 10-yard line. This is where he excels and throws his best route, which is an end zone fade. His fade around the end zone is excellent. It's something where his best throwing in general is usually when it's a receiver is wide open or it's against zone defenses. He's also at his best when he's ad-libbing. In other words, when he's playing sandlot football and everything breaks down, including the pocket around him. He has some Houdini to his game. He looks really good in the pocket. I understand why people have fallen in love with him, but that is where it ends for me. To me, Mr. Turner, and to our listeners, this is where the negatives begin, and I'm very comfortable talking about these things. He looks very robotic and mechanical to me in the pocket. He runs a play action and a pump fake almost all the time. It's way overused, and it's an average use of the tools. I'm not fooled. I don't think the running back has the ball. He also lacks any type of natural quarterback instincts to me. He looks like a glorified high school quarterback. He ran the offense almost exclusively out of the shotgun formation. So if you're an NFL team and you plan on bringing him in and putting him under center, that will be an adjustment period. He's got erratic accuracy. Half of his throws look great, which is what's deceiving, and half of his throws don't. Literally and truly, it was like watching, for me, Mr. Turner, and to our listeners, it was like watching two different quarterbacks on film. He's got an average arm strength. Now, it doesn't mean he can't throw it deep, because he can, but I'm talking about when he has to put some mustard on the ball over the middle on those intermediate passes, the arm strength is lacking. Half the time when I looked at his accuracy, he threw to me what I call in term very unfriendly receiver balls. What I mean is it was high, it was low, it was underthrown. Receivers had to jump. They had to slide. That gives the receivers no chance. Even if they catch the ball, it gives them virtually no chance to get any yards after the catch. That's a problem. Also, he lacks ability to throw timing routes. This is going to be a major problem in the National Football League. Many times, the receivers literally had to stand and wait for the ball. That is going to be a pick six. That is going to be an ESPN highlight every single time in the National Football League. I predict Zach Wilson will be an interception throwing machine in the NFL. And I question also, this is something, I see you smiling, Mr. Turner. I see you smiling. Hey, I mean, even the Sporting News has picked up this story about me and Zach Wilson, so we're forever tied and linked together. But here's the thing that a lot of fans don't know, a lot of things that I didn't know for a long time, is I question how, I mean, with all these issues I just pointed out on film. Now, listen, this is not stuff I make up. Zach Wilson put his resume, he put himself on film. All I do is watch and write what I see. And what I question is, how will he be throwing a bigger NFL ball? People are like, well, what do you mean? Well, what I mean is the college ball, regulation ball, is a smaller size slightly than the NFL ball. So I wonder how much of an issue and how much of a problem that's going to be on top of all the other issues I pointed out. He works mostly the short to deep, inner zones with mixed results. His deep passes are really what amounts to 50-50 jump balls. He's not somebody that places the ball in a good place for the receivers deep a lot of times. I think he covers for his lack of arm strength and his lack of ability to put mustard on the ball by working the sidelines a lot in the intermediate middle parts of the field, especially in tight man. I was just not impressed what I saw out of Zach Wilson throwing the football downfield. And this is not a guy that's going to beat you with his feet either. I mean, this is a guy that averaged 3.0 yards per carry in college. So he is a guy that's going to have to get it done from the pocket, but I just don't think he's going to do it. Now, here's some other things I want to point out. This is a soft kid. This is a kid that grew up with tremendous financial privilege. His uncle was the owner of JetBlue Airlines. Ironically, the same airlines I'm told that the New York Jets fly. How's that for an angle? You know, and he's a soft kid. And here's something that's alarming. Now I know people say, well, you know, when they look at Justin Fields, they say, well, Ohio State's never produced any good quarterbacks, so he doesn't stand a chance. I'm not big on, I mean, this is not the ultimate predictor, but it is an indicator to me. When you look at this kid who's supposed to be coming out as a franchise quarterback of a team, he ranks 9th on BYU's all-time passing list. That is alarming at BYU. He ranks, now obviously we all know Steve Young is on that list. Okay, well, that's valid. Here's the other names that he ranks behind. Tell me what kind of world beaters these guys were. Ty Detmer, well, actually pretty decent backup quarterback. I watched him growing up. He had a strong arm. He served his purpose for a number of years as a backup. Outside of that, listen to these names. Listen to the names that Mr. Franchise, supposedly the New York Jets, ranks behind. Max Hall, John Beck, Robbie Bosco, John Walsh, and Kevin Fiderick. No disrespect to the names on that list. Love you guys. But when it comes to NFL football, that is alarming. He ranks behind those guys when he's supposedly the savior of the New York Jets franchise. He looks to me, Mr. Turner, and to our listeners, turn up the volume, listen closely, guys, because to me, he looks like a manufactured quarterback. He looks like somebody who is put on an assembly line and told, you're going to be a quarterback. He does not at all have a natural feeling for the position whatsoever to me. This kid is overhyped. He's overrated. I think, you know, if I have to put a grade on him, there's no way in God's green earth is he on my board. If I'm the general manager of the Jets right now, this isn't even a discussion if I'm sitting in Joe Douglas's chair. I'm not even considering drafting him. But for a league grade, as far as putting a grade on him, I would give him a 3rd round grade is where I have this guy. And I also really question the level of competition. I know, Mr. Turner, you point out level of competition on almost every show we've ever done together. When you look at BYU's schedule and you look at Zach Wilson's numbers, everyone rants and raves about the numbers. I don't know if any of those people will even be playing in the NFL, to be honest with you. And if they do, they'll probably be an undrafted free agent. This year, ironically, the schedule is much, much more difficult for BYU. So I asked myself from a political standpoint, was the schedule made just so Zach Wilson could be a manufactured 1st-round draft pick? It certainly looks that way to me. This is a bottom line business. Bill Belichick used to have a saying, and he said, hey, listen, we're in a bottom line business. And this is the bottom line on Zach Wilson, quarterback, BYU. He's an erratic, soft kid who has an average arm, who is going to go to New York, and it's not going to have a happy ending. When you go into New York, it takes a special breed of quarterback. You know this, Mr. Turner. Joe Namath, Joe Willie, right? Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler. You start looking at the names who have had success in New York. It takes a tough-minded person. It takes a person with a thick skin. The media tears people to pieces out there. This is a soft kid who's going to struggle against the media. He's going to struggle against NFL defenses. Dear Mr. Johnson, if you're listening to this video, I know I went ahead and tagged you the other day on Twitter and wrote some things to you when you asked people what you know they thought you should do. Please don't do this one. Turn on the film. Call a staff meeting, please. Look at the film. This is a colossal mistake that if Joe Douglas insists on drafting this kid with the New York Jets, he will get fired over this one. Mark my words. Your thoughts, Mr. Turner?
I'm going to say this. You've been a scout at a high level that I never thought I would be. And what I'm going to say from really my standpoint of being a fan and a guy that's followed the game from an emotional standpoint, doing this on a very nice platform here at 100 Yards of Football. I see that you broke down Zach Wilson's game. And, of course, a lot of it is probably he has a lot of flaws. But what I look at, I'm just looking at it from a fan's perspective. In a guy that follows football, I see a guy that carried a football team offensively that didn't have a lot of talent. Then, number 2, I look at it like you just brought up the competition. Granted, we was in a pandemic year. Granted, BYU probably didn't play against elite competition like in the SEC or the Big Ten. But I take one game, Boise State, where they beat them 51-17. I believe Mr. Wilson had 400 yards passing. But they did have a gentleman that was in the secondary by the name of Avery Williams that we had on the show that's a pretty good football player. But this is the thing that I look at, and I've been wrong in the past. I thought Jamarcus Russell was going to be a star in this league. That didn't happen. I thought Ryan Leaf was 1A, 1B with Peyton Manning. That didn't happen. I thought Brady Quinn was going to be a good quarterback. So to me, when you talk about the quarterback position, really, you don't know what's going to happen. And you brought up a key point. You say hard. A lot of times when you go in the National Football League, it ain't so much, in my opinion now, it's all about what you got in here. But when I look at Zach Wilson, you brought up a gentleman right now. I remember I was going into my freshman year at the University of Arkansas in 1979, and the Giants took a gentleman, you just said, Phil Simms. And boy, the city of New York was crazy because remember this, Phil Simms was a third round grade. And Bill Walsh wanted him, but the Giants moved up and took him number 7. Now, coming out of college, Phil Simms was a 48% passer. He had more interceptions than touchdowns, but he did set the record for most passing yards in Morehead State. And I think Phil Simms got a Super Bowl ring, I think. Then I look at another situation, Ken O'Brien, who was a quarterback of the team that you was a scout for. Now, the Jets took him over Dan Marino. We can say Dan Marino had a better career. But Ken O'Brien, 2 Pro Bowls with the Jets, kept the Jets pretty stable, and ended up being a pretty good quarterback in his 7 years with the Jets. Then I think about Johnny Unitas coming out of the 56 draft. was drafted ninth by the Pittsburgh Steelers, got cut, ended up playing semi-pro football. Then the Baltimore coach turned around and gave him a chance on the Weeb Eubank. Then I think about one more incident, Bob Stock, who, when I was 6 years old, was a guy that I loved that won 2 Super Bowl rings under Vince Lombardi. But remember this, in 56, he was a 17th round draft pick. And then in 1959, it was a young man that came over from the Giants that was a defensive coordinator by the name of Vince Lombardi and changed his life around. Now, those 3 guys that nobody in the NFL thought was going to even put any stone on the league. So when I look at Zach Wilson, I look at a kid that's got, a young man that has some talent. To me, he's somewhat accurate. He got, to me, mobility to make it in this league. But the thing I think the key is the coaching that he's going to have with the Jets. Robert Saleh is a very good football coach. I remember when he was down here for 1 year, Logan helped me out when he was with the Dogs in 2005. He was a linebackers coach, and they went to the Sugar Bowl and won the SEC championship. He had a guy named Donnell Ellaby that won a Super Bowl ring with the Baltimore Ravens. Then I think about this young man's climb. He went to the Houston Texans. He was on their defensive staff, DeMarco Ryans, Mario Williams. Then he moved up, boom, 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 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tevin Smith, Miles Jack, Paul Pulaski, all of them gave him a stamp of approval when he got hired. Then he went to Seattle. He was under Pete Carroll. He was on the staff of that great Super Bowl team. I don't have to say from a defensive standpoint, do they have to say Clint Averill, Malcolm Smith, KJ Wright? He was the tutor of Bobby Wagner, who's now considered the best linebacker in the game. And then with the 49ers, I did my research, and Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, Fred Warner, Richard Sherman all gave him a stamp of approval. But I all know it's bigger the picture than him because he's a defensive guy. The offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, baby brother of Matt LaFleur. He came here. He was with the Atlanta Falcons. He was an assistant, Mr. LaFleur, on that Super Bowl team. Julio Jones had one of the best years in receiving the football. I think Julio led the league with almost close to 1,700 yards, but don't approve me on that. Then Mr. LaFleur, he was helping out with the tight ends. Austin Hooper became a real good player. Then it moves on to San Francisco. I'm talking about Mr. LaFleur, who's going to be the offensive coordinator in New York. Think about this. He was under Kyle Shanahan. He was a passing game coordinator. But during his tenure, George Kittle ended up having the greatest season any tight end as far as yardage. Then they started 3 quarterbacks after Jimmy Garoppolo fighting injury problems. Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard. You should know about him because his grandfather was a great GM with all those great Washington teams. So
absolutely,
looking at all that, I understand where you're coming from because you're a scout and you've done it at a high level. But me, just as a fan, I think that Zach Wilson, true enough, he has a lot of probably issues, but I think he's going to get really coached up well in New York. That's just my opinion. And I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. That's your job. But I'm saying this. If I was a betting man and he going under this young man, Mr. Saleh, his first coaching staff, and this is a guy who Pete Carroll, when the Jets hired him, said, I guarantee you one thing, that he's not going to go down with the ship sinking. He's going to hold people accountable. And people don't realize this. When Sam Darnold, who I had as a rated high quarterback that's drafted 4 years ago, out of USC, came to New York, I thought he was going to be a star. But then I look at the coaching he had. Then I look at Sam Darnold was not disciplined. He was out in the nightlife, if you want to say. Adam Gase, let's be realistic here. I take Robert Saleh as a head coach on Adam Gase any day of the week. So to me, I think Zach Wilson on my board, if I had a board, and I'm not a scout. Remember that. I'm just a guy who likes football. I think it's a late first round talent. I still say that I wouldn't take him over Justin Fields. But I'm saying borderline with Trey Lance. Only reason I take Zach Wilson because he's played more football in 3 years. And then definitely I would take him on with Mac Jones. So I say Zach Wilson on my board. Looking what he did throughout the season, the offense he had around him, I would say I would give him a grade of being my third quarterback. But I would say this. You said that he's a young man that might feel a bit entitlement. I've heard that, but I haven't heard nobody prove that. All I know is this right here. He carried a football team this season in BYU. Granted, it was against inferior competition, but at the end of the day, when you look at BYU on the film, it wasn't nobody but him. I mean, look at the film, the highlights behind us. They don't have star receivers. Ain't nobody running loose. I didn't see no running backs, you know what I'm saying, making anything happen. It was all Zach Wilson, really. And like I said, we talking about him entitlement, but I haven't heard anybody come with concrete information that he's entitlement. All I heard that I read from former teammates, the guy was a team player. And obviously, if he was entitlement, I don't think we'd be talking about him being the second pick in the NFL draft coming up in a week and a half. But I leave it at that. I'm not going to bet against Zach Wilson as being a bust in New York. But I would say this. I think he has a chance with the coaching staff and the head coach that's coming in. And when I say that, that's it for Vincent Turner out of the 901. Final words on Zach Wilson this morning, sir. Out of Key West, Florida, my man, Mr. Daniel Kelly.
Turner, you should have been an attorney. You have great closing arguments. that's for sure.
But you know what? I come from a family. I have an uncle that's an attorney. That's retired.
See,
I have a cousin that's an attorney.
Hey, you didn't ever tell me that. I must be an evaluator. Here's the thing, Mr. Turner, to our listeners, okay? You just said a lot. There's a lot to unpack with what you just said, okay? First of all, let me start by saying Sam Darnold is a way better quarterback than Zach Wilson. I watched Darnold in 2019. To me, when I watched him on film, I did an evaluation for Bruce Allen when I interviewed in Washington on the New York Jets. He's dramatically better quarterback from what I've seen on film. And second, you bring up a compelling argument when you talk about all the guys that came through there, including, of course, Wyatt Tittle was before all of our time, just about in the Polo Grounds. But when you look at a Phil Simms, you look at a Ken O'Brien, also Boomer Esiason, and I was thinking when you were talking, you didn't mention him, but I was thinking about him. When you look at all these types of quarterbacks that you mentioned, these guys were tough cookies. These guys were guys that wanted it. Guys that played with Ken O'Brien. Also, you mentioned these were tough cookies.
Agreeable.
Absolutely. These guys were street guys that were scrappers and fighters, and guys that came up. Bart Starr. I mean, you're talking about a legendary tough guy that played quarterback, and so all those guys have that commonality of being tough. With Zach Wilson, we talk about the entitlement issue. I mean, one can only and nobody's come out and said entitlement. But when your uncle owns a major airlines, it's pretty safe to say that you've grown up with privilege, and with privilege comes softness. I mean, you see guys in the NFL that do really well. These guys come from nothing. They have the chip on the shoulder. A lot of men, and they have something to prove, and they're guys that didn't have me about eating leftovers. So I mean, these guys wanted it. I don't see that with him. I think a soft kid going to New York is probably one of the worst mistakes in NFL draft history. It's going to play out. I just don't see it with this kid. And the thing with highlights, I mean, we're watching him look like Superman in the background right now. The thing with highlights is Scott Pioli, who's Bill Parcells' son-in-law, taught me when I came into the pro department with the New York Jets, was that you can make anybody look great or you can make them look terrible. Because one of my jobs was making highlight tapes for the coaching staff. You can make anyone look great or look terrible. When you go, I mean, on YouTube, you can pull it up. Every throw, Zach Wilson, you can look at it. I look at his full body of work. Yes, there was great plays. I acknowledge that in my report. Half the time he looks great. Half the time he looks terrible. We're seeing on film right now that half the time he looked great. I encourage all of our viewers, I encourage the entire coaching staff and the entire scouting staff, including Mr. Douglas, to go look at all the plays, the full body of work. And when you talk lastly about the coaching staff and about the people in place there, yes, there's no question that Coach LaFleur did a great job when you mentioned the Atlanta Falcons, but he had a guy by the name of Matty Ice. And Matty Ice has ice running through his veins. That's why they call him that. This kid is not Matty Ice. This is not Matt Ryan. And so it's in no disrespect intended, obviously, to Joe Douglas and certainly not to Coach Soleil. Very respectable football men throughout the National Football League. My only thing is I'm imploring them not to do this one. And I think there was a political angle to this, if we want to be perfectly honest, that a lot of times people who are trying to save their jobs and get extensions and have another 3-4 years to do something, this is just an assumption on my part, but by trading Sam Darnold and bringing Zach Wilson in, they just bought themselves another 3-4 years on the contract. So I'm not a fan of getting rid of Darnold. I'm not a fan of bringing in Zach Wilson, if that's who the pick is. I think it's a huge mistake, and I'll be using this video to hopefully have a chance to interview as the general manager of the New York Jets down the road.
One more question I got for you, and I want you to make it quick for me this evening. Well, this morning, because I got a lot of love and a lot of respect for you. Okay, you said privilege. Well, I know it's a young man that played football at Ole Miss from Drew, Mississippi. Ended up being a first-round pick of the New Orleans Saints. Went down there. Didn't have a great career with the Saints, but ended up doing pretty well outside football. He produced 2 sons. Both of them going to probably end up in the Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, one of them played with the Giants. And the other one got 2 Super Bowl rings, one with Indianapolis and one with Denver. That was a lot of rumors. They was entitled because they came from a lot. But I think one of the gentlemen's name was Peyton Manning. The other one was Eli. But all I'm saying, DK, when you make that statement, all I'm saying about Zach Wilson being entitlement, I'm just saying I can't. Was anybody there at the BYU practices? Was anybody around the teammates? Was anybody around even asked the coach? But all I'm saying, it was the same rumors I heard about when them 2 young men came out. And all I know, both of them, and you know what this game is about. Now, this is just my wedding ring, but it's about
the most important ring.
And yes, sir, it's about them chips. Tom Brady got 7, and he was a 6th-round pick. All I'm saying is, Zach Wilson, to me, he's got skills to make it in this league. I think he's a first-round talent, but I really like the situation he's going into, DK. He has a very good football coach that's played his dudes, and a young man that's going to be the offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, who brother Matt is doing pretty well over there in Green Bay, even though him and Aaron Rodgers might not be seeing eye to eye. But I think I would not bet a Zach Wilson being a bust with the New York Jets. Hey, if you like the video today, please come in and share it. Follow this young man right here, Mr. Daniel Kelly. The best has ever done it at a high level. NFL scout with the New York Jets. Got an outstanding book and whatever it takes. Was on ESPN yesterday. Superstar in the making. Please come in and share the video and follow this young man. Matter of fact, Daniel, give out your contact information where people can follow you.
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter at Daniel Kelly Book. I'm also on Facebook on whatever it takes, NFL Talk. And also you can find me anywhere on the internet. If you go ahead and Google Daniel Kelly New York Jets, Daniel Kelly whatever it takes, Daniel Kelly NFL Scout, a lot of things will come up. And one last word, you're going to give me a chance to say something. One last thing, right? One last thing.
Come on, man. We up against you.
One last thing. Back when Archie Manning played football, those guys had part-time jobs in the summer. They didn't have a whole lot of money. I'm done. Thank you, everybody.
You had to get this last shot in. But I'm going to say this. When you go to New York, like the great jazz and R&B musician George Benson, Zach Wilson's going to be on Broadway. Doom, 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 doom. Zach Wilson, don't let me down, baby. Don't be a bust. If you like the video today, please come and share it. I'm Vincent Turner. Joining me is my man, former NFL scout, last candidate for the GM with the Cleveland Browns. He's got an outstanding book right now, Amazon, whatever it takes. Pick the book up and read his story. It's a fascinating story, and it's one that's going to make you be hungry about what you're doing in life. My man, Mr. Daniel Kelly from Key West, Florida. Thank you this morning for watching us here on 100 Yards of Football. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.